Hello, and welcome to the Digital CxO podcast. I'm excited to be here today because we have our first guest, Meredith Graham of Ensono. She is the Chief People Officer. How are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Thank you.
Wonderful. And also with us is, of course, Mike Vizard. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about this topic, but maybe a little scared at the same time.
So to begin, Meredith, can you share a little bit about Ensono first, and then we'll talk about a recent survey that y'all did.
Yeah, great. So Ensono, so we have about over 3,400 global associates, and we are a managed service provider, and we provide services to Fortune 500 companies, and we provide those services mainframe to public cloud and digital applications. So I'm really excited to be here to talk today about AI and how it's impacting women in tech.
Awesome. So with that being said, y'all recently released the Speak Up 2024 survey, and this was a survey of 1,500 women across 3 different countries that are working in the tech sector. So you mentioned AI, so we can start there. There was a lot of information, but we know that's the big topic of the day. So what are some of the key findings in the AI section?
Yeah, I think which was very interesting is that of the women surveyed, a large proportion of the women were really taking the lead in AI and what AI means within the tech sector and for their careers, which I thought was very interesting. And then there was also a lot of women mentorship as well. So that in and of itself, leads me to believe that, women are truly interested in this next step and this next phase of AI and how it's really going to impact their world and then the future world.
It seems like to me there's a bit of a difference, though, between the building of the AI models and the using of the AI models. And I bring that up because we've talked in the past with numerous folks about the STEM education issues that women encounter, and they kind of disappear from math departments in 7th grade. And there's a lot of men building the AI models, and I don't think they're deliberately injecting bias, but there's cultural bias that gets injected into the model itself that then manifests its way out to the use cases. So, what's your sense of, have we thought this completely through, or are we just kind of jumping in and then we're surprised when there are some suboptimal outcomes, as they say?
No, I think we're jumping in, as you said. I don't think, I think technology always outpaces kind of, legislation and regulations and just kind of the thought around like, what is the true impact to the human? And I think that is why really women do have an interest in it, because I think that they are looking at it. I think that we are looking at it, that there is going to be a huge impact, and there's a potential for a lot of good if you can ensure that these models don't have those biases, but then there's a lot of risk if they do have biases. So, just around, talent development and those types of things, and just ensuring equality. If there's any sort of bias that gets into there, how do you stop it? And I think that those are the questions that people are asking. And I think that's why women really are interested in what it means and how they can participate in the development of AI, as it is very new.
So I remember in the report, there was some information about remote work versus in-person work. And for women, it seems like they're struggling a little bit if they're working remotely. Why is that? And can you share a little bit deeper information about that?
I think, just stepping back, I don't think this has anything to do with AI. I think there's just struggles around remote work. And it's particularly, in businesses where there are kind of hybrid in-person and then remote. I think that women in general enjoy remote work immensely. Actually, I think a lot of people do, because it provides a lot of flexibility. But there are, inherent risks. So if you have people that are working inside an office and are seeing, the executives or the leaders day in and day out, there's always just generally that tendency to kind of lean towards that person that is sitting next to you and having that conversation, and not necessarily sharing all of the information that you have with the remote workforce. And I think it's just something that, we've been working on since COVID and the world shifted around how do you ensure that there's a level set across the organization when you do have in-person, hybrid, and remote. And I think it's a struggle, but I think it's more of a leadership development that we've been working on definitely throughout the time. And I think that there's just continued leadership development that needs to occur to make sure that it's level and equal.
Now, this part of the survey left me scratching my head a little bit because, I work in an office and have been doing so for the last year and a half. But prior to that, I spent the better part of a decade working remotely. And as I went through your list, I was like, yep, experienced that. Yep, experienced that. Check, check, check. I mean, it seemed to apply to both male and female. It's just the nature of the beast.
Agree. No, I don't think that there's female versus male. I do think that there's a tendency for more women, if it's hybrid, remote, or in person, to accept more of a hybrid remote model just because of, caretaking duties and things like that. I think the flexibility around child, taking care of your children or, even, parental responsibilities, I think that flexibility just leans more towards that than men. But that's just more around those caretaking. But I agree wholeheartedly that, if you're remote as a male and remote as a female, it's probably going to apply equally.
I would say the only difference that I do experience working in the office is that my wife is working from home now. She just randomly throws stuff on my calendar and expects me to do it. So I'm like, okay, there we go.
Well, that's relationship, so we don't want to go there.
Well, that does bring us to the next part of the survey, which was about that work-life balance. So what were some key findings there, and what are some of the struggles, and what advice do you have as far as balancing, the family care and the work?
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult. I mean, again, so women generally have the caretaking duties generally fall on women. That's not always the case, and so there are struggles around that work-life balance. But the remote hybrid, I think, really enables individuals and women to have that flexibility and to be able to do the work that they need to do at different hours and not always be, an 8 to 5 type of thing. So, I wish, people with children and I would say that 8 to 5, is doable for most, but it isn't, in reality. So I think, that flexibility in that hybrid really is very important. And I think, some of the mandates that employers are giving around being in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think that is adversely impacting women because, I think they want to be able to have the opportunity to come into the office when they can be in the office and what works for them within their lives. So I think those mandates are adversely impacting a lot of women, and hopefully people will look at it as encouraging more women to come into the office, but not those mandates.
We were just having this debate on the Tech Strong Gang, which is another show that we do. And I think Amanda was involved in this. And we were trying to work out the nuances of, well, you're working remote, but you're kind of have different hours and different times. And it's hard to sync up and kind of get everybody on the same page at the same time when we're all talking about the same thing. On the other hand, if we force everybody to live in San Francisco and New York, we limit the scope of the jobs that are available, and it's probably bad for the economy and it's bad for everybody in general because we're not being as inclusive as we might. So how do you kind of strike a balance between those things where we're trying to stay engaged with each other, but at the same time we don't want to require everybody to work within a 2-hour commute to the office?
Yeah. I mean, so, I mentioned at the beginning, we're a global workforce. Half of our workforce is in India, a portion is in Europe, a portion in US. I think, that said, most companies are going towards those global, and you find those times where you connect and where it's important, and you prioritize those meetings, you prioritize these Teams meetings, these Zoom meetings, to make sure that everybody's on the same page. To mandate people near offices are also excluding, if you look at the global workforce, huge groups of people. So that India workforce, they tend to work late so that we in the US can get up early and Europe can be in their afternoon, so we can all collaborate equally. So I think it's just setting those expectations around what's important and the timeline of, those hours that you have to be available, and ensuring that you work around that. I think most people would agree that, they can make that work within their schedules as long as they know in advance.
What did women have to say as far as the overall work culture? I know there was some information in there about the culture.
Yeah, I think, overall, there was good news around how I think that women are feeling more connected in the workplace, and things are really improving. I think, that said, some of the feedback was that there's still some areas of improvement that need to occur. I think there was still some feeling around microaggressions and some limited discrimination. And I think, again, it's around developing our leadership. It's developing the culture in the organizations to break down those barriers. But overall, based on where we were, a few years back when we did the first survey to where we are today, I think that most women kind of expressed that they saw a lot of positive improvements, which was great.
Mm-hmm. Is it your sense that, that's a marginal improvement, or is it your sense that we still got a long way to go, or where are we on this journey? Before the guys run around and declare victory. No?
Yeah, no. I would never declare victory. So, and it was only 1,500 women. So it was a sampling. But I think it's great, though, that we're starting to see improvement overall. Where we were, even 10 years ago, even before we started doing the survey, I think women would say that we've made significant improvement, but I still think that there's a long way to go to true equality within the organization. And a lot of that too comes from, if you look at the tech sector, there's not a lot of women still in leadership roles, and true equality comes from having, equal parity throughout an organization. And so there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. But that said, there's been improvement. And so I'm really happy with what I've seen and heard.
Wonderful. And I do believe the survey did show that there are more women entering into the tech sector. Is that correct?
Yes. So there's definitely more women entering the tech sector. So we definitely, and even in Ensono, we've seen a lot of, women joining where we're getting into an equal parity situation at those junior levels. But again, still a lot of work to be had, particularly in the senior levels.
Do these issues also apply to other forms of inclusion that we're trying to achieve, whether it's LGBTQ or it's just simply people of different economic backgrounds? Are we making progress across the board, or is it just that we've been focused on this one area, but we still got a long way to go in other areas?
I think we've made progress in a lot of areas, just because there's such a strong awareness around bringing inclusion into the workplace, bringing equality. Every study that you read, the more diverse you are in an organization, the stronger you are. The greater revenues, the stronger organizations, because you just need those different voices. Bringing in people that are all from the same background and same age, grew up the same, that doesn't lead to a lot of diversity of thought, and I think we need that diversity of thought. So there's been progress. It's just there needs to be a lot more, and our survey focused on women, but I agree with you. There needs to be a lot more just around the ethnic side, and then also LGBTQ plus. So,
and I think the last segment of the survey shared a little bit about what women value as far as benefits from their work. And so what were the most valued benefits from the workplace?
Yeah, I think there was a lot around, skills enhancement and development. So making sure that there's those career paths were very important. I think the flexibility was noted. And I think there was a lot of, just information just around also being part of decision making, and being able to decide where the organization is going. And, going back to, the beginning of the topic around AI and women in tech, I think a lot of women are interested in that because they want to be part of that decision-making process. Like, what is Ensono going to be doing? What is my company going to be doing with AI? How can I assist? How can I enable? How can I be part of that? And so, enabling women to lead the organization and help, move the organization, and directionally is very important, is what we read in that survey.
What's your sense of the political climate these days? Because, of course, it is an election year and we have a lot of different things happening in different states. We are in Florida, and of course, as some of this is a regular conversation here. But it's everywhere, right? The Republic of Ireland just had a referendum that changed some of the wording in their constitution about what defines a homemaker, and apparently not enough people showed up, so it went down in flames, and much to the surprise of the political leadership. But it seems like it's a global conversation, and I wonder, does it matter what the government thinks, or should each company just do what they think is right?
From what perspective, I guess, with a little bit of clarity, that's an open question. It's very different paths. Where are you going?
It's just a sense of, should companies be worried or be paying attention to these various legislative initiatives that are floating around, or should they just kind of focus on doing the right thing by what's good for their organization? And maybe there's too much noise in the system.
No, I mean, I think, we are heavily focused on legislation that impacts our associates and how it impacts our associates, because that impacts how they do their work and what they're focused on. And so, monitoring what's going on within, where we do business is very important, so that we can address concerns that come up from it. There's a lot of divisiveness, in the world today, and that does impact people. And so, we need to do the right thing, but we also need to support all of the people that work for us in these, kind of volatile times. And so, if necessary, we, as Ensono, I'm sure would get involved in an initiative if we thought it was going to have a huge impact on our associates, and the way we do business. At this point, we haven't got to that point. But I think it's something that, organizations and leaders just need to be concerned about, because it does have a huge impact on how people live their day-to-day lives.
Wonderful. So I think we have covered most all the sections of the survey. So if there was one key takeaway that you could leave our business leaders with today, what would that be?
I think you just really need to focus on not only women in the organization, but just the minorities in STEM, in technology, and ensure that you're bringing them along. I said it before, diversity of thought is very important, and that diversity of thought comes from people with diverse backgrounds, and gender and ethnicity, is very important, and you should focus on it, and continue to develop, because as I said, we've made great strides. When I started long ago, I won't tell you how long ago, it was a very different world. I can say I'm very proud of where we are today, but we still need to do more. So continue, keep the focus, continue to support, listen, and, just do the right thing and help enable, those diverse, associate pools to, come on board into your organization and really make a difference.
All right, folks. Well, we hope you're listening to this podcast, because that's part of listening, right? So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming on our show, and thank you to our audience for tuning in, and we'll be here next week.
Great. Thank you.